Hi, this is Billie Beene here with another segment of Truth by Billie Beene, episode 299. Today's date, March 9, 2022. President Putin and Russia. Will they press on to other nations? We'll see. In Romania, we'll learn something new about the Buceti Mountains, brought up by Penny Kelly. And God is bringing reckoning. So let's get to it. Okay, some of my sources for this will be Israeli News Live, Dr. William Mount, and others. Okay, I'd like to say thanks for like, subscribe, and share, and I'd like to do a shout out to the support from my channel from Fulford, Texas, and Anna from Brooklyn. Thanks so much. And especially thanks for all my Patriot subscribers for words of encouragement. They're wonderful. And your words of insight. Because my Patriot subscribers know a lot. Okay. I'd like to say thanks, like, subscribe, and share. I have a subscribe button in the lower right corner of my screen. I'd like to say welcome to all 50 nations, including Alaska, Hawaii, the First Nations, Cherokee, Navajo, Hopi, Chickasaw, Mohawk, Apache, First Nation, Pitt River, California, Mohegans, Yakama Nation in Washington State, Potawatomi in the Midwest in Oklahoma, Ojibwe Nation in northern Minnesota, a proud people who want peace and justice, Choctaw, Abenaki tribe, Cheyenne, Mashantucket Pequots, Blackfoot in Montana, Spokane and Colville in Washington State. And we say welcome. And we say welcome to the nations of Canada, England, France, Ireland, Philippines, South Africa, Netherlands, also called Holland, Indonesia, Scotland, Germany, Switzerland, New Zealand, Maldives, Nepal, Norway, Australia, Chile, Thailand, Belgium, Mexico, Brazil, Russia, Panama, Guam, U.S. territory, Jamaica, an Icelander living in Spain and other people in Spain, Wales in the U.K., Sweden, Italy, Puerto Rico, U.S. territory, Romania, Bermuda, Bahamas, British territories, Morocco, Argentina, Northern Marianas, a U.S. territory located close to Australia and New Zealand, Denmark, Bolivia, Uganda, Iceland, Serbia, Bulgaria, Mauritius, a small island off of Africa, and the latest, Ukraine. So let's get started on the news. Okay. I have a Patriot subscriber says there are also pyramids in Ukraine. You know, we're finding a lot of pyramids now all over the earth. I have a Patriot subscriber who's talking about the last information we had from God where he used the word cludge, C-L-U-D-G-E. And she says it's a lot of cords plugged into an extension cord. Okay. I have a Patriot subscriber from and a friend from Facebook who's saying the scene they're showing on mainstream media, escape from Kiev, that's the former capital of Ukraine, is actually a scene from the movie Impact. Okay. Now, Cliff High has brought out interesting things about our timeline, what's happening, and we're seeing that take place. And we had some heads up. Now, Cliff High is saying that in 1963, we had the assassination of our president, JFK, and that since then we've known about different things going on. Now, Cliff is bringing this out that in Ukraine, historically, this is history going back to about 325 AD. That's when the Kaisers, a group that worships Satan, they went to Kazakhstan and also Ukraine to settle. And This is the group that Jesus said, you say you're Jews, but you are not. So they then went into took over a certain segment of Judaism, the Jewish religion, but they came up with Kabbalism and Zohar. Both of these are actually forms of witchcraft and sorcery and worshiping Satan. They have nothing to do with the Jewish religion in the Bible. Okay. Now, so Cliff High is bringing this out. Dr. William Mount is saying that on February 17, we know that Russia actually went into Ukraine about February 20. And we'll see they had good reason to go in. All right. So now he's saying the shadow U.S., this will be the shadow U.S., CIA, Department of Defense, Pentagon, and government. Because we know there are shadow parts of all governments. This happens to be the U.S. All right, so on February 17, the shadow U.S. CIA, according to Dr. William Mount, wanted to set up a nuclear explosion in Donbass to take out the Slavic people. That's been the intent here by the cabal, to take out genetically people who are Slavic. Okay. So now Russia has taken out 14 biolabs. Now we have Azov. This is a group that uses this type philosophy, which President Putin describes this group as having no compassion. It may be that this group is not fully human, and it's this group who has been killing the civilians and using them as human shields and other things in Ukraine, not Russia. So if you're listening to the mainstream media, understand all you're getting are lies. All right. Now, Mel K interviewed Benjamin Fulford. Benjamin Fulford is a Canadian journalist, worked for Forbes for 20 years, still lives in Japan, has contacts with ruling families. He's talking about Azov. Now, there are multiple sources for this, and I've seen a video. And the Azov group captured a Russian soldier who was white and a Christian, and they burned him alive on a cross. The video's very plain. They nailed him to a cross, then set it on fire. This is the Azov group inside Ukraine that the shadow U.S. CIA set up. Okay. Now, Benjamin Fulford is saying NATO. It has no troops. That would be correct, because the JB actor has no control over the U.S. military. Now, there is a shadow part of the U.S. military, but still JB is not in control. That would be the cabal. All right. Now, Benjamin Fulford is saying any pictures you're seeing of shooting or killings inside Ukraine are fake. They're coming from other places, Syria, Lebanon. Russia is, and Benjamin Fulford says, Russia is liberating Ukraine and taking out biolabs that the shadow U.S. CIA and Department of Defense put in Ukraine. Okay. Judy Byington is saying within 48 hours, Russia had taken down the Ukraine army. Now, this Ukraine army is not really Ukraine citizens. It's more a case of the cabal hiring mercenaries from other nations. Okay. So she's saying that by February 22, Russia had taken down the so-called Ukraine army. And this is why President Zelensky handed out weapons to civilians. President Zelensky, according to Judy, Byington, has asked NATO and the UN to send troops. But they have nothing to send troops. They have no troops to send, and there's nothing to send them to because the Ukraine army is in disarray. And this is an example. And this is multiple sources, Judy Byington plus, that Poland had tried to send convoys with weapons to Ukraine, and they were vaporized from space by the Space Force because Russia and President Putin are part of the alliance. So the convoy from Poland with weapons was vaporized by the Space Force. Okay. Now this comes from Regis Tremblay. He's an American expat. He's living in Crimea. And he's also talking about the 6 convoys from Poland. They were vaporized by the Space Force. Okay. And he's talking about, of course, there's been food disruption within Ukraine. Russia has sent 10,000 tons of food, medicine, plus to Ukraine to help the civilians. Meanwhile, the Azov group is killing civilians. Okay. Now, there's also Regis Tremblay from Crimea, also with information from a Dr. Kozin. He's political science inside Russia, who is giving information. And he's saying that Russia, when they capture the Ukraine soldiers, they ask them to sign a paper that they will not take up arms against Russia. Then they let them go free and send them home. This is why there's no real civilian or people's army in Ukraine. Now it's just the mercenaries and the Azov group, and that's killing civilians. Okay, and they're bringing out, this Dr. Kozin, that the group inside Ukraine are Kaisers, Rothschild, Rockefeller, Klaus Schwab, Collins, Sinclair, the cabal. And they're also saying it's a glorious time to be alive. We're seeing a righteous people rise up to take on the deep state. Okay, Gerald Celente, has interviewed Russell Bentley. Now, Russell is a U.S., I think it's U.S. and Ukrainian citizen. He's living in Donetsk. He's married a Ukrainian woman. Okay. And he is saying that it was during the administration of Obama that the elected president of Ukraine was taken out, and then they put in Zelensky, who was an actor. So the shadow U.S. government took out the elected president of Ukraine. Now, so they're saying the mercenaries are using the civilians as shields. Russia is working to take out the Biolabs. And he's talking about, Russell Bentley's also talking about Victoria Nuland. And I had, this is about 2014, I had a Patriot subscriber who has family. I have several Patriot subscribers who have family or come from Ukraine. Said that about in this date, Victoria Nuland stood in the capital of Ukraine, passed out cookies while the snipers got in position to kill civilians. That's when they were taking out the elected president, putting in the puppet Zelensky. Okay. Now we know, and I have information. I had information from a Patriot subscriber who said that 70,000 evacuated. They went to Rostov. And she relayed it was children. Well, it was actually women and children, elderly, disabled, and they evacuated there early in February from the Donbass area of Ukraine. So now, the men who are 18 to 55 are drafted. This is a Donbass area. They have their own People's Republic Army. So they are drafting men 18 to 55 to be in the People's Army. Okay. Now, Russell Bentley doesn't think President Zelensky is in Poland. And he thinks the Russian military, they have objectives to take out the biolabs that are 100% set up by the U.S. government. Okay, InfoWars. Alex Jones is bringing this out, that Russia has taken out biolabs. The U.S. government, shadow U.S. government paid for. They were doing level 4 genetic specific testing. There are also labs in Uzbekistan and Georgia, and this will be part of the areas I believe the Russian army will go into. Okay. So, and Russia and Alex Jones is bringing this out. President Putin is saying any nation who tries to enforce a no-fly over Ukraine, Russia will look upon it as an act of war against Russia. Okay, so I have a Patriot subscriber who has family. They're in Mariupol, Ukraine. And this happened about on March 5. President Putin gave a speech, and my Patriot subscriber's wife could translate because it was in Russian. And what he said is, he is not going to stop. Meaning the war will spread beyond Ukraine. Now that was on March 5, so I waited. I wanted another reference for that President Putin, the war was going to spread beyond Ukraine. Okay. And this Patriot subscriber is taking notes or translating from President Putin's speech that the deep state in Europe are in panic, and it's President Putin in this speech who is defining what is Azov and saying they have no compassion and no allegiance to any people or country. And they will have to be taken out. And the Azov were also trained and funded by the shadow CIA. They are a diabolical group of fanatics who will kill you where you stand. And we know from Russell Bentley that this Azov group had killed in cold blood a general in the Ukraine army a few days ago. And he's talking about this Azov group in 2014 went into Odessa, and a lot of children and people were in a building. They set the building on fire and then blocked all the exits. There were some journalists there who started to ask questions, and they were shot dead. Okay. So now, in March 5, my Patriot subscriber's wife's niece and 11 family members are in Mariupol, and they're hiding in a cellar. Russia now surrounds Mariupol, and they are handing out food to the civilians. That's from my Patriot subscribers' family inside Mariupol, Ukraine. All right, so now the second source I had for President Putin and Russia extending the war outside Ukraine is Israeli News Live Stephen Ben-Nun, formerly with the CIA and now has the ministry. Okay, he had the article, Did Russia Foil a NATO Plot to versus Donbass, to take out Donbass? That's the region of the Russian genetic Slavic people that all these biolabs are making genetically specific bioweapons against. Okay, here we have Ukraine, we have Crimea down here, we have Mariupol, and we have Luhansk, Donetsk, and this area is called Donbass. It's the Donbass region. We have Kiev, we have Lviv, we have Odessa. All right. So the NATO plot was to send to Ukraine in the summer of 2022 4 brigades of military, and each brigade has between 2,000 to 5,000 soldiers in it, and they were to move to this area, surround it, and begin ethnic genetic cleansing, killing all of the Slavic genetic people in this area. That was NATO. And we know it would have to be a lot of the shadow U.S. military, because NATO doesn't have any troops of its own. So NATO did not realize that Russia was going to go in February 20, because they had a plot to go in on the night they were still going to go in, NATO, with shadow mercenary troops. They were going to go in on the night of February 24 and began this genetic cleansing surrounding Donbass area and killing Slavic, genetic Russian people. All right. This is according to Stephen Ben-Nun. Okay. So Israel now tells its citizens to leave Poland and Romania because Israel knows that the war is going to spread, and Poland and Romania will be two nations that it will spread to. Similar objectives. This is God, President Trump, the Alliance, President Putin, Chairman Z, and up to 35 militaries worldwide who are prosecuting this taking out of bioweapons labs in all of these nations. Now, right. So now, NATO had a plan on February 24 to send in 5,000 U.S. shadow military soldiers from Romania to go to Donbass, surround and cleanse, kill the civilians there. So this is Stephen Ben-Nun reporting on a NATO plot. Now, turn the page with Janine recently interviewed Mike Penny. And we are down now to 11.5 in the war manual. And this means the mainstream media is going down and the emergency broadcast system is coming up. And Mike Penny also says Russia is liberating Ukraine and taking out the bioweapons labs. All right. Now I have a report from Iceland. RVK News went to Lviv, and he interviewed a couple of people who were doing podcasts there. And the important information they brought out, and this two journalists inside Lviv are obviously part of the shadow government, and they're saying that Russia is invading Ukraine. So, I mean, it's the mainstream media. But they are bringing this out that they're saying 64,000 Ukraine returned, plus 20,000 from 53 nations came in as part of the Ukraine army. I submit to you, these are the mercenary numbers. So we need to be aware about 100,000 mercenaries have returned or come into Ukraine. Now, Dr. William Mount is saying President Zelensky is in Miami in his $34 million villa, which may or may not be true, but this goes along. Russell Bentley said, I don't think he's in Poland, so maybe he's in Miami. How's that working for you? Okay, now I have information from Gene Decode, who was interviewed by Patriot Underground. Now, Gene Decode, 25 years experience as a nuclear engineer, also had half an hour near-death experience in 1992, where he met with God face-to-face, and God downloaded into Gene the next 1,000 years. Now, I had a Patriot subscriber who said she had a similar experience near death in 1986 for 20 minutes, and she can vouch that much of what Gene is saying, she also heard face-to-face from God. Her job is different than Gene's. Gene's is to bring out this information publicly. Gene is talking about the biolabs being set up to genetically specific groups like Slavic people and Asian people. And he's saying that here is Kherson. This is also the area where a recent arc was activating. So they found in Kherson, they took out labs, and Russia has this as part of what they've taken over. And they took out the labs with surgical strikes with special forces who are specifically trained to take out biolabs. This is part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds and the Alliance. And Gene is talking about some tech that the Alliance have. They can look through Earth, from satellites in the sky all the way through Earth. They can cloak soldiers. You can't see them. And they have a neutrino detector and infrared detector. They can ID beings that are not human, that are negative. We would call them ETs. And they have a little device that'll pick them up based on their frequency. Now, I want to explain some things so that we can better understand what's going on. This is the difference between 3D, 4D, and 5D. So 3D is what we are living in. We have height, we have width, we have depth. 3D. Now, if you have a being, so we vibrate at a certain frequency. It's all based on frequency. So we're vibrating. This is 3D. If you were to see a being that was vibrating at 4D, they would look kind of transparent. We would best describe them as being a ghost. But if they were operating at 5D, they would be invisible to our eyes. It all has to do with vibration. Now, Gene Decode is saying that to neutralize the 5D beings that are coming here and prosecuting this war, we have to first you lock in on them with the detector. You immediately put them in stasis because they're virtually impossible to kill. And then they are taken off-world to Andromeda, where they are held. There's a council of 7 that then is going to do a trial. So these are the extraterrestrial beings, like we would say fallen angels, and they're being taken care of by God and the Alliance and other groups. Okay. Gene is saying the biolabs, they're taking them out. They're rescuing young humans and other people who have been kidnapped and taken to the biolabs for experiments and torture. And they're also being taken off-world where there are med beds set up. All right. Now, Gene is talking about Ukraine. There are negative ETs from the constellation called Zion. That's how Zion came into to be. They also had one planet called Na, and that's how they came up with this. This is all part of the ETs, the Kaisers, the fallen angels. You say, Jesus said, you say you're Jews, but you are not. Okay. And Jean is saying that, yeah, they can strip a human soul out of the body, then they sell it, and 1 grain of sand of a human soul gives them a lot of power. Isn't our God good? Aren't we a miraculous creation by God? Okay. Now, Gina's saying that the Russians are removing uranium from some of the deep underground areas. Now, Dr. William Mount brought this out, that a nuclear power plant generates energy at 10 times the cost. And he's saying that nuclear power plants are not set up to generate energy. Their purpose is to refine plutonium, uranium, and so on for nuclear weapons. So, don't let anyone tell you nuclear power plants are to make energy. Not true. Okay. Now, Jean Decode is saying this. Here's the Donbass area. Here's Crimea. Here's Odessa. That's a port. Here's Kiev, the former government, because this one is fallen. Russia has this. They also have Kharkiv, this area right here. There's a new capital, Lviv. Now, Jean Decode is saying this. What Russia is leaving in Ukraine will be somewhere along this railroad line. All the rest of this is going to belong, and still continues to belong, to Russia, because we have learned in the past couple of weeks that Ukraine in 1991 did not declare their boundaries as a nation with UN. Therefore, Ukraine remains a part of Russia. So, that's coming. Now, where is Russia going to be spreading? Russia and the alliance. Let's make it clear. This is not just Russia fighting this battle. So they're going to go into other nations. Israel's already telling their citizens to leave Poland and Romania. So they're going into Poland, Romania, Czech. There are some biolabs in Czechoslovakia, Uzbekistan, and Croatia. Now, there may be others that come up, but this is what we know so far. So, that's going on. But we can look for the war effort. We call it a war, but really it's Russia and God and the President Trump and the alliance. Russia taking out ethnic-based biolabs in different countries. So now we'll move to sci-fi. And this is some information that came out from Penny Kelly. Penny was formerly an engineer with Chrysler. She's a truther. And she's bringing this out, that the Buceti Mountains, this is in Romania, we have information that inside this, they have 3 tunnels. And in the middle tunnel, it goes to deep inside Earth, where there are cities, including Shambhala. A lot of us have heard of Shambhala. In the right tunnel, it goes to Tibet, the Gobi Desert, Baghdad. They have plates with history and this type of information in these areas that are transparent, like they're made of crystal. In the left tunnel goes to Egypt, to the Sphinx. We've been hearing about that. There are plates there about the history that are platinum. Now, also inside the caves, the mountains in Romania, the Vicedi Mountains, they found a container that has a type of gold that will bring you youth, long life, and it makes you smarter. So that's in the mountain. All these are coming from ancient civilizations that have been on the earth in the past. Now, inside a big room, they have 5 tables. And they're big tables, like 15 feet long and 6 feet wide. Okay, now, 15 feet long, 6 feet deep, 6 feet high. And on these tables, they have slots, and you put your hands there, you can activate them. But it's only people with certain DNA that can activate them. So those people who can touch them, then a holograph comes up, and it has like history of the earth and humans and biology and geology and engineering and other topics, holographically presented. Now, because it's based on DNA, is this a reason that the cabal is trying to wipe out the Slavic people in that area so they cannot use this technology? And it's spread out all over the earth, and we're hearing about finding history records underneath the Sphinx in Egypt. So this is going on. This is another reason I think that the cabal chose Kazakhstan and Ukraine to settle in, because they knew that this information was there. Okay, so now a look ahead. Israeli News Live, did Putin foil a NATO plot versus Donbass? We think so. Now, the prophet Chuck Pierce had a word from the Lord, war by April. And Cliff High said this of President Trump and President Putin. They're righteous dudes. Okay. ShariRaye brought this out. We're hearing now when things come up again in the news, we can look forward to hearing more about it. So Robert David Steele and McAfee, they have all the info. I think in the very near future, few days, we'll hear more and more about different members of the cabal. Now, Sherry is bringing this out that the information about med beds Medbed's coming soon. And this will be in all states. And it will be under the control of the military. And they'll first will be used to treat soldiers and individuals they have rescued. Then there will be a list. There will be a processing phone number for people to call and their doctors with their medical conditions. And then people who need immediate medical attention would be pushed through. But this will take, Sherry's estimating, about a year to set up. Okay. Now she's talking about gold going to $2,000, oil $139 a barrel. And there's an alignment of God, President Trump, the alliance with 35 militaries and governments, President Putin, Chairman Xi, Prime Minister Modi, and others. Nasara Jassara is going forward. In some nations, it's more along being used, like in Russia. They have now a gold-backed money system. And Russia had been using another international transfer of money different from SWIFT called SIPS, which 180 nations have been using for the last year. Okay, here's the prophet Kim Clement about Ukraine. I will make light to shine from obscure nations like Ukraine and Estonia. And God says, there's a spider web, but it's no match for my servant's broom. You know, like we would clean with the broom, spider webs. Now this spider web, could that be some part of the internet, spying on people? Okay, God says my people have it. All right. And one prayer of a saint can move my hands. I am the ruler of the universe. And we say, yes, yes you are, Father. Now, insight from God. This is something God, at the beginning of 2022, he said, get a book. You know, I'll give you some insights. So this is an insight I have from God, and it applies here. And we find in, I think that's Daniel chapter 5, there was a king, Nebuchadnezzar. He passed away, and his son came in, Belshazzar. And that nation had captured God's temple, and they had gold goblets and things from the temple. And this Belshazzar brought them out, and he and his people got drunk on them. Then there was a finger that came out and wrote on the wall, and it wrote many tekel parsin. And what this means is you've been weighed and found wanting. And this is what God says about the cabal. And God says, the time of great reckoning, avenging vengeance, is upon us. It will spread across all universes, all time and space. And we say, bring it, Father. And now a short prayer and a cleansing prayer modeled by Jean Decode. We remove all permission to be in us, on us, around us, on earth, off-world, any dimension, any person, place, or thing not of God. Any assemblage of fallen angels, any AI, nanobot, and other forms of tech. Any non-terrestrial species, spirit, thought form, operating system, genetic overlay, past, present, and future. And we say, get away from us in the name of Jesus. Now, a prayer from the Passion Translation, Psalms 21, entitled Blessings. Rich blessings unfold with every encounter you have with God. We rejoice before your face. Your almighty hands have captured our enemies. You, our God, uncovered all who hated us. When you, our God, appear before them, unveiling the radiance of your face, they are consumed by the fierce fire of your presence. Flames will swallow them up. They and their descendants will be destroyed by your unrelenting fire. These are the ones with evil plans against God and against his sons and daughters. They will run when they see God's judgment arrow aimed straight at their hearts. We praise and sing celebrations to our God, and we say, thank you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And we say to our family and friends, remain steady, continue to pray. God is in charge and he is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.